Hi everyone, this is Dr. Nitin Chhoda and welcome to my channel. In this training video, I'm going to answer the question, will we see bigger paychecks because of a proposed payroll tax cut from the White House? I'll talk about the pros and cons of this White House proposed payroll tax cut. I'm going to go over three things in this training video. The first is, what exactly is payroll tax? The second, what are the details of the payroll tax cut that are emerging from the White House? I'm actually going to dissect an interview that Vice President Mike Pence did with Jim Cramer on CNBC, and then I'll break it down for you and help you understand what exactly that means. And number three, I'll go over exactly what you can expect going forward, depending on whether you have a job, whether you don't have a job, and what this actually means for you. Before I get started, if you are an existing subscriber, welcome back. If you're not an existing subscriber yet, please consider clicking subscribe and enable notifications. And if you click the like button, that really helps out the YouTube algorithm. And if you do that, I would really appreciate it. So what is a payroll tax cut? A payroll tax cut is a tax that is withheld from an employee's salary by an employer who then sends it directly to the government. So the tax is based on wages, salaries, tips and commissions, and payroll taxes are paid directly from the employer to the IRS. So essentially they're taken out of the employee's earnings and they go straight to the IRS. So where does the money that comes out of these payroll taxes actually go towards? It goes towards Social Security and Medicare. For Social Security, employee wages are subject to a 6.2% tax up to $137,700 in 2020. And workers also pay a Medicare tax of 1.45%. So essentially, part of your paycheck is going to fund your Social Security and your Medicare, which you'll need at some point in time in the future. Now, in addition to that, employers match what workers contribute by also putting in 6.2% towards Social Security and 1.45% towards Medicare. Now, if married couples filing jointly make more than $250,000 combined between themselves, or if a single person makes more than $200,000, they pay an additional 0.9% towards Medicare. Now, those who are self-employed pay self-employment taxes, which are similar, but they happen to cover both the employer and the employee side. So they essentially pay higher Social Security and Medicare taxes as self-employed individuals. Now, if you've been watching the news, you saw the recent May numbers that came out, the jobs report numbers, which were much better than expected. And what I found very interesting was an interview that Jim Cramer, CNBC's Jim Cramer from Mad Money, did with Vice President Mike Pence. And it was a fascinating interview. Now there's a 2.5-minute video clip of this interview on YouTube and on the CNBC website, which I will link to in the description below. But I saw a lot of interesting signs emerge from that interview directly from Vice President Mike Pence, and I'll break that down for you right now. And these trends, this interview points towards what could potentially be a payroll tax cut. In other words, you could potentially, for some period of time, potentially through the rest of the year, not pay your payroll tax. In other words, not contribute to Social Security and Medicare, and then go home with a higher paycheck. Now, on the one hand, this does sound good because individuals could go home with a higher paycheck, but there are two sides to the equation because this doesn't address individuals who don't have a job. Also, it creates a bigger hole in Social Security because Social Security as it is an underfunded program, and Social Security is projected to run out of money at some point in the future. So there are pros and cons to everything, but first let's take a look at this interview between CNBC's Jim Cramer and Vice President Mike Pence.
Do you need to coalesce with the Democrats who would like to have a $3 trillion plan? We know that the bountiful versus what it was unemployment claim number with the additional $600 expires at the end of July. Is it okay to let that expire? Do you need to have talks with the Democrats?
Now, this was interesting because right away Jim Cramer addresses the difference in opinion between the Democrats and the Republicans. As you probably know, the Democrats introduced a very ambitious HEROES Act, and what they want to do, and they passed it in the House, what they want to do is significantly extend unemployment benefits, extend the $600 federal booster, make sure that more money goes out to states, whereas the Republicans want to take more of a wait-and-see approach. The Republicans want the economy to reopen. They want to be able to see what happens and they want to be a little bit more conservative when it comes to handing out more money. So there's a fundamental difference in ideology, which I have covered in other training videos. But let's hear what Vice President Mike Pence has to say, because I think there are a lot of interesting attributes in what he said.
Say minority aid packages to cities because of what happened not so long ago, the tragedy in Minneapolis. Are these on the table, or do we just let it run?
Well, look, those discussions are ongoing, and we're going to work in good faith to put the interests of American families.
Right there, that was interesting. Those discussions are ongoing. Notice that Vice President Mike Pence did not immediately dismiss the idea, did not say that this is something that we're not going to do in terms of the additional stimulus. He does talk about the payroll tax cut very soon in the video, but notice he said that the talks are ongoing. This to me is a very good sign, because this is telling us that there is potential, there is room to find a middle ground, because again, the Democrats are on one side, the Republicans are on the other. So there should be some meeting of the minds, and there should be more stimulus checks, hopefully, and more money into the hands of individuals who are struggling.
But what's absolutely essential about any additional recovery package is that we have the kind of pro-growth policies that President Trump's been advancing.
So this is Vice President Mike Pence essentially touting what President Trump has done, and you would expect him to do that.
We're going to be there for families to see them through. The President said early on, and I'm sure he'll reiterate in just a few moments today from the White House, that we're going to do whatever it takes to get the American people through this pandemic, and we've done.
This is important. We're going to do whatever it takes to get the American people through this pandemic. So you can see that there's definitely an initiative, a strong initiative from the Vice President, from the White House to do more, and I'm expecting more things to happen. But again, this is because we have a Democratic controlled House and a Republican controlled Senate. We have to have them see eye to eye, because one can't get anything done without the other.
We'll continue to do that for families and small businesses, particularly businesses that have been severely impacted.
So he's talking about families and small businesses. The administration has done the Paycheck Protection Program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the Main Street Lending Program, and now the administration wants to do more for families. They did the stimulus check and they did the unemployment, but clearly there is a need to do more, and that's something that Vice President Pence is acknowledging in this interview.
Inner cities, including businesses that have been subject to rioting and looting in recent days. But what has to be there, this president believes, is we've got to have a payroll tax cut. We've got to have the...
That's significant, because this is an initiative that's coming directly from the White House. Vice President Mike Pence specifically said we've got to have a payroll tax cut. His exact words.
Got to have the kind of pro-growth policies that will continue this economic recovery. The only thing that could slow this economic recovery is if Joe Biden and the Democrats won the election this November and brought about their higher taxes, their war on coal, their Green New Deal, and all the policies that President Trump...
And I've talked about this in other training videos. We are in an election year, so this is going to pivot from an economic recovery focus to an election focus gradually. And you can start to see that that's already happening, because obviously one side wants to stay in the White House and the other side wants to get into the White House.
Has been pushing back on, and that's the choice the American people will face in November. But today what you see is the strength of the American people who have heeded this president's guidance. We put the health of the country first, the mitigation efforts work, our recovery and relief plans work, and the president's guidelines to states across the country to reopen America are working. Now all 50 states are reopening their economy, and you see the evidence of that.
This is again an important focus. The Republican focus is for the states to reopen, for the economy to reopen, for individuals to get back to work. I've talked about this in other training videos, where there was a proposal from Senator Rob Portman about a $450 a week back to work bonus. Now it was a proposal. It hasn't gone anywhere at the time I'm recording this video training. But again, the focus for the Republicans is, hey, we need people to get back to work as long as it's safe, and we want the economy to come back on its own 2 feet. The Democrats, on the other hand, want to extend unemployment, want to be able to provide more funding to states. And so again, there's a difference in ideologies. But it's interesting here how Vice President Mike Pence's focus is on the recovery and on the states reopening, which again clearly explains the difference in ideologies between the two parties. So let's talk about specifically what a proposed payroll tax cut could mean to you. Now, obviously, there are some of us who don't have our job, who lost our job, who are on unemployment, and there are other individuals who have a job. Clearly, the payroll tax cut is going to help individuals who already have a job. In fact, payroll tax cuts have the potential to put more money into the pockets of people who not only already have a job, but who potentially have higher salaries. Because if you have a higher salary, then you're going to be saving even more more and getting even more money in your bank account because you're not paying towards Social Security and towards Medicare. Now, there is an argument to be made that those individuals with higher salaries already may have some sort of savings. So a payroll tax cut is already helping those who probably need less help to begin with. There are individuals who argue about that, but there are other individuals who argue that individuals with higher salaries basically need more money because they have higher expenses. So there are two sides to that equation. The problem though is that a payroll tax cut does nothing for individuals who don't have a job, who lost their job. It does very little for individuals who've had their hours cut significantly, and those are the individuals who need help the most, because it is the low wage earners and the middle income earners who've suffered the most. A majority of individuals who've lost their jobs fall into the low wage and the middle wage earner category. Now, the underlying idea behind the payroll tax cut is that it will help both employees and employers. If an employee is not paying 6.2% towards Social Security and the 1.45% towards Medicare, they now get a bigger check, a bigger take-home check. This in turn would allow that individual to save more, hopefully to spend more, because at the end of the day, the government wants you to spend the money because that's essentially what drives the economy. But I personally believe it's better to save more when you can, and I think we in general, as a country, we need to be saving more. But as far as employers are concerned, if an employer does not have to pay the 6.2% towards Social Security, the 1.45% towards Medicare, the employer now can also save more money, potentially reducing layoffs, because at the end of the day, if employers lay off people, then that leads to unemployment, and that leads to more pressure on the state and the federal government. So the idea of trying to do away with payroll taxes, at least for a short period of time, presumably through the rest of the year, is done to ease the burden on employees, so employees go home with a higher paycheck, and also reduce the burden on employers, so employers are less likely to lay off employees. Now, like I mentioned, the payroll tax cut could be helpful, but it's not going to be the solution that most individuals are looking for. A lot of individuals, especially low wage earners and middle income earners, especially in tourism, in hospitality, in dining, we're talking waiters, we're talking individuals who work in these restaurants, they don't have a job to go back to, and potentially they could be looking at either being laid off completely, or they could be looking at significantly reduced hours. Let's say restaurants are only doing takeout as opposed to dine-in. And across the country, different states are recovering at different rates. Some states already have restaurants open, some states the restaurants haven't opened yet, and they're still doing a lot of takeout. So unfortunately, these individuals, the low wage earners and the middle income earners, again, in industries like tourism, like hospitality, and in dining, they are the ones who are significantly struggling, and a payroll tax cut is going to do nothing to help these individuals because they don't have a paycheck. Therefore, the question of a payroll tax cut doesn't even apply to them. I personally feel that there should be a combination of more stimulus, and there should be some payroll tax cuts. There should be an approach from the government to essentially tackle both sides of the equation, because a payroll tax cut can provide a benefit to one section of the economy, but a stimulus, or essentially more checks, more money, would help those who need the money the most, because those individuals don't have a job to go back to. So I do hope that Vice President Mike Pence and everyone in the White House, again in the Congress, and again in the House and in the Senate, see eye to eye and pass another round of stimulus checks, because that's something we really need. In addition to that, they should consider a payroll tax cut, because you're helping not only those who are employed, potentially with hours that have been cut down, and you're also helping individuals who are unemployed or who've lost their job through no fault of their own. This is a complex subject. I did my best to make sense of this topic. I'm hoping we can see both, because a payroll tax cut alone is not going to be able to solve our problems at this point in time. However, it is a step in the right direction, because this is such a complex matter that I wish we could just snap our fingers and solve the problem, but it's not possible. There has to be an approach to this situation that tackles the problem at multiple angles, which is what Congress and the Senate are trying to do, and I'm hopeful that they'll see eye to eye and something will happen. I really appreciate you watching this video. Remember, I release videos at 2 p.m. East Coast time on most days of the week, so make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Also enable notifications so I give you an instant update. Please comment below. I'd love to be able to engage with the community, interact with the community. Our community has been growing very, very rapidly, and I appreciate you all listening to me, and I'm hoping that I can continue to provide you more value, hopefully give you a lot of good news in the coming weeks and guide you as to how to get out from this crisis and help you know your rights, help you save more money, help you become stronger financially. I really appreciate you watching this video training. Please don't forget to click subscribe, enable notifications, and click the like button, and that'll be a little stimulus for me. I would really appreciate that. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next training video.